Right, hey guys, how are we doing? Back on another video from Totally Not Mark. We are continuing with his Berserk reviews. I have read the second half of the Golden Age arc and I could not believe what I was reading. As soon as I got to the point where you finally find out what happened with Guts and Griffith, oh my god, my jaw was just open. I just, like, gobsmacked. Absolutely gobsmacked. The biggest betrayal ever. Like, what? So, yeah, let's see what Mark has to say in the show. Jeez.
I've never read Berserk before, but Kentaro Miura's sophomore outing in Golden Age utterly broke me. Berserk's Golden Age is a prequel story about how the series' main protagonist, Guts, became the man he is in the present day.
I really like how it's been structured.
Birth until the lowest moments of his life. In essence, this is Guts' backstory, and in my opinion, is easily the best origin I've come across
in recent
memory. In the first part of this, I explored what turned out to be the upbeat section of this tale as we observe the complex relationships and dynamics organically forming around the main cast of characters suddenly experiencing a fissure unlike anything I've seen before in manga. A fissure not driven by hatred or anger, but of ambition and hope. Advice taken on board. With the story in question ending in one of the most hopeless and horrifying places I think I may ever read or see. And what happens between these two moments in time is one of the best examples of character-driven storytelling and character torture I've seen put to paper. And
character torture is definitely
a
really good description for this.
All of manga that I've read. And I'm not afraid to say that. Better than anything I've seen presented by Dragon Ball, Hunter x Hunter, JoJo, or indeed One Piece. If you've ever expressed an interest in learning how to write compelling or exciting stories with complex characters and motivations, Berserk's 1997 climax to the Golden Age arc is something to be studied.
1997, Jesus. Here we go.
In an attempt to split this mammoth of an arc into two separate videos, I decided to conclude the first half here. But there is
good spot to because that's literally where I ended the manga to do the review.
It was not
Check it out.
Instigated that outcome. In many ways, Griffith's desires from the beginning of the story all the way to the end very much consumed him and those around him.
Oh yeah.
And it's Guts, after having escaped from that metaphorical vortex, that throws off Griffith's plan to achieve his desires. And
he goes a bit nutsy, doesn't he?
Plot's first half starts to drift further and further away.
This way goes into Princess's chambers.
Relentless amount of fan service in these stories oftentimes. I
get
sex sells and all, but at the end of the day, to me it feels like a crutch or at the very least an annoying distraction.
I read these mangas in public, so it's a bit awkward for me sometimes.
Which is of course why I watched Keijo. Kentaro Miura, on the other hand, is something of a savant when it comes to writing these types of scenes. Instead of feeling bored or annoyed by tired and overdone tropes getting in the way of the story, I'm instead captivated by these scenes as they not only enhance the story, but they are essential in exposing us to integral and emotionally revealing character differences. Something that's abundantly clear in Berserk's Golden Age arc is that it's centered around not just one character or a group of characters necessarily, but a set of relationships and how they contrast in subtle and stark fashion. With the two main relationships explored after this duel being Guts and Casca and Griffith and Charlotte. And what I thought these scenes achieved perhaps above all else was their highlighting of the existing
Casca's constant, like,
as well as their approach
weird that, like, she can't help but feel something for Griffith.
Albeit at different times,
she's very conflicted.
Consequences of their actions. Griffith now has to face a soul-crushing trip back to reality, and Guts has to reconcile what became of his friends after his decision. In other words, both Guts and Griffith's characters are exposed to a tremendous amount of pressure. And that's important. One of the most important techniques to make use of as a writer is one that allows you to communicate to your audience who your characters are in a believable fashion. Much the same as real life, someone's true character is only revealed under pressure.
Oh my god.
Author, professor, and story consultant Robert McKee put it best in his book entitled Story. True character is revealed in the choices a human being makes under pressure. The greater the pressure, the deeper the revelation, the truer the choice.
So the character's essential nature. I like that. Yeah.
These high stakes, high pressure scenes are in essence
reveal who a person really is.
Into fan favorites, villains, heroes, or otherwise. Take for example Disney's The Lion King.
Okay.
Alright, okay, I can can see you all rolling your
Yeah,
eyes.
no, go on.
Really,
Go on,
techniques
come
in
on,
storytelling
come on.
are present across all genres, even ones as different as Berserk and The Lion King. In this film, Simba is introduced as a headstrong, naive, and in many ways arrogant kid, impatiently waiting for his time in the sun as king of the Pride Lands to begin. At this point, as an audience, we have no reason to care for him as a character necessarily. We appreciate he's a kid, he's cute, and he has some
Yeah, he
great
is.
parents,
He's
but
very,
he's
very
not
cute.
proven himself to us. And so, that's where this scene comes in.
Mate.
The elephant graveyard.
We don't go
In
there.
this, Simba drags
Oh,
his
that's cool. I played this game.
death situation thanks to his own inability to see the woods from the trees. But in the elephant graveyard, despite being terrified and in way over his head, Simba still goes back to save Nala against those monsters he knows can kill him. This is the moment we as fans of The Lion King learn to respect and appreciate Simba's character. And it's one of the many reasons why
He's a
the
good boy.
live-action remake fails in capturing that same magic, because they cut that scene out of the film.
Oh,
Now
you see, I've not seen the live action, so I was like,
Simba,
whoa,
and as a
that's
result,
crazy.
the film feels hollow. And I labor that point for one specific reason. It's the very technique Miura's perfected. The technique that turned Guts from a character we appreciate to one we despair, hope, and pray for
Yeah, man.
in the end.
I really want him to be okay.
With Guts, Griffith,
God.
shaken to his very core, feeling like he's lost control of everything in his life, grabs the nearest branch on his fall
It's like,
down
come
to
on,
reality.
mate.
In a desperate attempt to seize control of something, he forces himself onto Princess Charlotte in a fashion never before seen by us in the series. It's incredibly uncomfortable, but it's also the most
It is
human this
uncomfortable,
one-time
and
god
Griffith
among men
afterwards
has
is very
ever
much
appeared
like,
to us.
ugh.
Even after the fact, he feels hollow and alone, left holding himself
Look at him.
distraught. It's an effective scene for all the reasons I outlined, but to add further layers to this outcome, as touched on prior, this scene is also a terrific contrast that brings the best out of what transpires between Guts and Casca. With Griffith's relationship with Charlotte being born out of manipulation, leverage, and ambition, Guts and Casca's develop naturally across the entire arc. He encounters
I
significantly
love
more
them
does
too, and I
Griffith,
hate
don't
what
think
happens
there's a
to
single
them,
person
man.
Guts himself interacts with more in significant ways. Maybe Judo is a close candidate, but even then, that's mostly light conversation. Unlike Griffith, who sought out Charlotte for his own selfish desires, after having left for a long time, Guts returns into Casca's life not for personal indulgence, but instead to make a save in grand fashion. He learns of all the hardships she's had to endure and how strong she's been for everyone involved.
Oh yeah, they're
This
hunting
is
down
a
the hawk,
far
aren't they?
cry
And then
from
he
Griffith's
learns
scene
that
with
through the
Charlotte,
tournament,
and
is
the
that, is it?
difference
I'm
only
trying to remember
pile
now.
up as the story progresses. Where Griffith barely spoke to Charlotte, even cutting her off mid-sentence with an unsolicited kiss, Guts and Casca work through their remaining differences and baggage together in one of the most beautifully vulnerable and powerful scenes so far in the story, metaphorically laying themselves bare before each other. This is what genuine connection looks like, and it's exactly
To
what
get
Guts has
like a
been looking
really
for all
genuine,
story
like,
long. And during this waterfall scene, there's a specific
emotional,
moment where
like,
we as an
connection
audience
between them
finally
two,
see
like,
the toll this
they
past
struggle
year
so
has
hard
had
with
on
each other to
Casca's
let
sight,
each
and
other
we see
in.
the state the Band of the Hawk has been reduced to. And from the deepest despair, Guts himself helps to uplift her from this courageous,
You
self-imposed
crazy woman.
prison. And in no greater contrast to Griffith, instead of forcing himself on her, he gently and slowly comforts her, naturally leading to their first kiss. It's a gorgeous marriage of narrative
Yeah.
competence and
Ah,
masterful
that is a nice
layout work
comparison. I do
right
like that.
here.
Yeah, yeah.
If the story ended, I would have been happy.
Oh no. We know that ain't the case.
The rescue of Griffith, courtesy of the best the Band of the Hawk has to offer,
Mate.
is such a thrilling and anxious
Absolutely
affair.
awesome,
There
and
are
then
so
for
many
what
different
happens
plot
afterwards,
threads
it's like,
dangling in
come
the air,
on, nah,
with
not to
bits
these
of
guys.
unraveling implemented to foreshadow future events that I could hardly contain myself throughout my reading. Furthermore, I really appreciate how this ragtag team of rescuers are incredibly proficient.
They
Faced with
really
scenarios that
are. They had
far
some
more
really
complex than
cool
we've ever
stuff
seen
going on.
before,
They were
I love
very,
everyone
very...
from Guts to Casca
Can't think of the
to
word.
Judo
They
to
handled
even
themselves
Pippin
very
find
well.
their means of contribution towards this final
Oh
effort,
yeah, this
which
guy was
will
weird.
no doubt make what happens after all the more shocking and sorrowful. Again, continuing to implement the techniques spoken on prior, Miura places our heroes in situations they've never before seen the likes of. Having to sneak
Immortal.
into one of the darkest, most depressing environments we've collectively encountered, the band have to make their way down to the cellar where Griffith has been kept all this time as
Oh my
punishment
God,
for
yeah.
violating the princess. Apart from the horrific imagery on display during this segment, something that's particularly impressive, I think, here was this page. This is a wonderful
He looks
misdirection
so
of the readers. Given
weak.
the candor displayed by Guts and the rest of the band, it seemed to me upon first read-through that this was a tender moment displaying two friends reuniting and showing their appreciation for each other. However, upon closer inspection, and now armed with the knowledge of what's to come, we can notice that unlike Guts, Griffith wasn't crying, and that he in fact wasn't trying to hug him, but was trying to strangle him. When we as people are pushed to the brink, our true nature is presented, and this remains true here with Griffith showing us exactly who he is. I think it's also kind of interesting how, as I mentioned in the previous video, Guts' security blanket is in many ways a sword, and I think there's an interesting contrast here. Later in the story,
I suppose he would be, because he's the one thing that he felt was stopping him reaching his goal, I guess, at the end of it all, isn't it?
Which made me think Guts was Griffith's security blanket, and as soon as he lost him, he felt as if he had no control over the world anymore.
Interesting,
like he lost a fundamental part of himself. In other words, he was put under pressure, and he couldn't take it. In many ways, the protagonist of this story can only be as intellectually fascinating or emotionally compelling as the forces of antagonism make him. In other words, a great hero can only be as good as the forces of evil he's up against.
Yeah, he's fighting.
And what I find so interesting about that particular idea is the means with which Miura understood this rule and chose to build upon it. The strength of a story like Berserk is that it isn't restrained by the limitations of other manga narratives targeted towards different demographics. Due to this fact, Miura is free to make something look as beautiful or as horrifying as he can possibly imagine.
Jesus.
Comparable elements like these two sex scenes I spoke on earlier, making one of them appear beautiful, elegant, and freeing, with this initial scene between Guts and Casca showing us everything great that can happen from an outing like
he
this.
didn't. He had flashbacks to like his young time as well, didn't he? With her, it's like
and the absolute worst of human nature, and the story is all the more powerful for it. This allows him to create those extreme pressures for various characters I told you about earlier, and as a result makes our heroes appear that much more legendary and virtuous, while making the antagonists all the more underhanded and despicable, making for heavenly high highs and soul-destroying lows. Berserk is a manga of extremes.
Really is. Yes, you're speaking a lot of truths.
Onward, the more fantastical elements make themselves known gradually over time. This is all to say that the characters of Berserk and the world of Berserk serve to make this one of the most emotionally resonant stories out there. If these techniques I've illuminated were created to help grab a viewer's attention, then the extremes Berserk employs serves to shackle the reader's attention to the pages as they flutter by seamlessly.
Here we go. Here we go.
Nosferatu Zod and the Battle of Doldrey. Last week, I neglected to speak on the events of the Battle of Doldrey for a number of reasons. I don't like to dwell too much on heavy action set pieces, as they are a feast for the eyes, but not always for the mind. Taken into consideration, however, the Battle of Doldrey gave me more than a little to consider and sink my teeth into, particularly now that I've finished the arc and have the benefit of hindsight. Throughout this story,
the power of hindsight is strong.
Otherworldly strength, tenacious understanding, and he never seems to reach his limits. This has been helped on numerous occasions by the circumstances he not only is placed in, but manages to crawl out of. We've seen him defeat monsters, demons, and even armies of men, all trying their very best to take him down, but none ever have. But one almost did. And it wasn't a monster, or a demon, or an army. It was a single man. During Guts' impressive physical display, there is one instance where, for lack of a better term, or way of describing it, he was supposed to die. That had it not been for one specific character, Nosferatu Zod, Guts wouldn't be here. Zod makes his presence felt numerous times throughout this arc, and always in a pivotal sense. In a way, Zod seems at the very least morbidly interested in Guts. For what reason I can't be certain, but he is interested in him nevertheless. Perhaps similar to how Hisoka treats many of the main cast early on in Hunter x Hunter.
Yeah, interesting.
Zod seems to be interested in preserving the likes of Guts, for during the moment he was about to die, he threw him the weapon he needed to survive. At that moment, he was conflicting with our idea of him as a character. In our minds, we view him as the bad guy, and now he's preserving the life of the hero character. But knowing what I know now, it almost seems as though this was one of the worst things he could have ever done for this young man. Given his talk of the eclipse, which I will definitely speak on in just a sec, he seems to be involved in this idea of preordained destiny. He will ensure that Guts will make it to the eclipse, and once branded, it's only a matter of time before he, Guts, will lose his life. In many ways, Zod not only prolongs Guts' life, but ensures it down a specific path that he's interested in, and it highlighted just
interesting. Okay, yeah, damn.
The character of Guts actually is.
Jeez.
Making his character that much more effective.
Oh no.
The eclipse. It's going to be very difficult for me to say something concerning this aspect of the story beyond what many before me already have, and to a much better degree. I haven't studied this arc the same way many people have, and these are really just my first impressions. But personally, I found this to be a stunningly beautiful affair in terms of artwork.
Yeah, in terms of artwork, like...
I've ever, and I mean this, sat through in my life, and it's by design.
This was shocking, man.
This, I felt really uncomfortable. However, in that same breath,
you meant to, I feel.
As much as I could. This eclipse had been an event we've effectively been counting down towards since it was first mentioned. The link was made with that weird necklace egg thing Griffith had, and really, I was waiting to see what sort of twisted and sadistic circumstances Griffith would put Guts through to create that same level of hatred he demonstrated at the end of the Black Swordsman arc. And by the way, those of you that say the Black Swordsman arc is unnecessary, I think are dead wrong.
No.
The arc sets up the lens through which we are expected to see this arc.
Jesus, I love the structure. It's like, you got the world's all messed up, all that stuff, Guts and Griffith, what the what, and then it's... See what happened? Yeah, definitely don't do that. Jesus, nah.
Going into this arc, in the back of my mind, I was on the defensive, trying to prevent the story from making me care about these characters, because I knew there was going to come a moment where Guts would be alone, filled with the same resentment and vengeance we've
seen. Yeah.
But I didn't succeed in that venture, because that's exactly what this arc tricks you into doing. It tricks you into caring. Much like Guts is as a character, we as an audience after Black Swordsman have our guards up, on alert against the outcome we know.
Yeah, we know it's coming. It's like, we don't want it to happen. It's like, nah.
Epic, one after another, our walls come tumbling down as we learn to embrace and hope for the future with Guts and his new team of friends. We learn to love Pippin's good nature, Judo's sharp and considerate thinking, Corcus's abrasive antics, Casca's strength and compassion, and even maybe for a moment or two, Griffith's determination. Like Guts, we had our guard up against the evil that we knew was coming, and yet Miura found a way to help us warm to this, at times, overwhelmingly cold world. Through this lovable group, the same way Guts did, learning about their pain, their struggles, and the sacrifices they've been either forced to make, or have been apprehensively made when all other options had been taken away from them. Miura created a world, populated it with some of the most human characters we've ever seen, and in leveraging that which we cared for, he gave us exactly what he'd made us hope never would manifest. He flooded this human world with demons. Any sense of stability, hope, and happiness that was once present is now immediately extinguished in the most excruciating of ways. The pressures these characters have been placed under has been perhaps greater than any we've seen. During this, we see who these people really are for the better and for the worse. The term bad dream is mentioned numerous times during this particular apocalyptic scenario, and I think it's as if to reinforce the success of Griffith achieving his lifelong dream, with it effectively being everyone's collective nightmare. Throughout Berserk,
using everyone as a sacrifice, man, it's like, what?
Troubled but immeasurably resilient individual capable of feats of strength and tenacity far greater than anyone ever expected from him. The trend throughout this story has placed him under tremendous pressure time and again, forcing him to place his life on the line against impossible odds, showing us that he truly is a powerful, heroic, and virtuous person.
He really is.
Reinforcing this idea that as long as he's armed, he's practically invincible.
Damn right, give him anything.
And so, instead of continuing that trend, Miura decides to subvert this very aspect of him during the eclipse. In this, Miura asks the question, what if Guts can't save them? What if Guts fails? Casted into a literal hellscape vortex of which there is virtually no escape, the paneling once again is some of the best in the industry, but perhaps some of the very best out of Miura himself. There's a real sense of scale and horror to these moments, helping to emphasize some of the more tender exchanges as the main group slowly whittle away to nothing. Pippin's send-off broke my heart as he stayed back to hold them off, only for us to see him fall in the distance. Corcus's too was nightmarish to a horrifying degree, but Judo's honestly took me by surprise, and because of that, it hit me like a train. Watching as he time and again does everything in his limited power to struggle and protect Casca, only to, on his deathbed, reveal to us as readers, he in fact always had feelings for her, made me tear up beyond belief. And with everyone dead, Casca captured, and Guts struggling and crawling to her rescue, once again Miura puts us and Guts through hell.
Oh God, no. Whoa.
For almost 2 entire chapters, we're forced to watch, Powerless to do anything, as the person Guts loves more than anyone in the world endures some of the worst abuse I've ever
Mate,
been able to
I
see
could
or
not.
think of.
It was so hard to
Therefore,
read.
capturing how Guts felt
Ugh.
more accurately than I ever could possibly describe, thanks to Miura's masterful implementation of a calligraphy brush. Hacking his arm off and piercing his eye trying to get free, unable to change anything. Page after page, this kept on going relentlessly. So much so, I had to step away from the story after witnessing it. But upon my return a day or two later, the worst part came into focus for me. For once the eclipse came to a close, Griffith rose to power as some sort of dark phoenix satanic demigod, and Skull Knight saved both Guts and Casca.
And let's get out of here, boys.
Continues. Destiny. There seems to be an interesting push to empower the idea of destiny in some shape or form within this story. Time and again, noteworthy events occur as Puck and Guts, without even knowing each other, indirectly intersect. Here's an example. Early in the story, Judo tells Casca about the elf he met in those days when he was working with a traveling entertainment troupe. We of course know who he's talking about, but within this conversation, he gives Casca this elf or fairy
The
dust
healing stuff.
healing Guts' wounds after he managed to take out 100 men. This link could have ended here as a very nice cameo, but later in the story, during the events of the eclipse, we actually get to see Puck cross paths with Rickert. So, I wonder, is this relationship between Guts and Puck destined to happen?
Hey.
Are their fates intertwined in some sort of meaningful way? What is Miura trying to tell me here? Because we later see Rickert meeting with Guts again, and as it is said in this troop scene, he's going to be important in later events. There are some other subtle details, like Guts crossing paths with a Count as he is the apostle who ends up killing Pippin during the eclipse.
Yeah.
But this whole destiny concept gets much more present towards the conclusion of the arc, where Skull Knight and the demons tell Guts explicitly that he is branded and will be forever hunted as a result. And in this moment, Guts fiercely declares war against his
he's
own
like, bring it on, kill them all.
He's the one who blazes his own path, even when the circumstances point to everything other than that being the reality. Which is sort of ironic because Guts is forced to follow this path that seems to be already decided by destiny. He is healed by the elf dust. Both Zod and Skull Knight save his life in situations where he should have died, and most importantly, he crosses paths with Griffith. And Griffith specifically because it is said by both humans and demons that he is someone special. And we see this at the end of the eclipse. Guts falls into a pit that seems bottomless while Griffith rises from the ashes like some sort of primordial phoenix as he embraces his true nature and his decisive victory in this finale. It's like Griffith was favored by destiny from the beginning while Guts wasn't. Griffith has everything in his hands to achieve his goals and dreams while Guts has nothing other than his sword. Griffith is
He only
allowed
has
to
one
dream
hand.
while Guts is cursed to struggle. The aftermath. Having been the only
No, this is so sad.
unscathed, Guts experiences the isolation and loneliness that comes with the strength and resilience he possesses. For the duration of this arc, as things began to get better and better for our main troupe, one of my favorite aspects has to be the relationship between Guts and his
Casca.
more specifically, Casca.
Yeah.
Their relationship throughout was spectacular and felt extremely real. And as the looming end came ever closer, I couldn't ignore that I knew what was going to happen. At the end of the Black Swordsman arc, I knew Griffith would be someone he hated more than anyone, and I knew he was alone. And so as people died in grand but horrific fashion...
Yeah, like, killing off Casca would have been an easier way out, really, than what actually happened.
On my Twitter, I shared some thoughts I had regarding this series, saying that I wish that things would have stayed as they were. I tweeted this having been convinced that Casca would die at the end of the story.
Worse, what they do to him, man.
But in reality, something, at least for now, far worse has happened. The worst thing for Guts wasn't for Casca necessarily to die, but for her to go on in this tortured state she's left in. And in learning how he has to constantly keep finding a reason to live and fight not only was beautiful, but tied once again back with that quote Griffith throughout towards the middle of the arc. Guts now, well, he has a goal. To survive and to fight Griffith, body and soul.
Yeah, man.
Before I go, numerous messages I received after I announced I would be tackling this series claimed that I would find its contents too grim, much the same as I did with Hunter x Hunter during my read-through of that. Many of those that messaged me said I would find more of the same here. And going into this series, I was very conscious of that being a distinct possibility. But what Berserk revealed to me wasn't unrelenting depression, but instead quite the opposite. Behind the gore, violence, torture, and agony many in this story have to endure resides a tale rich with hope and love, begging for someone, any one of us, to just hold on that little bit longer, to keep fighting, to keep crawling to keep struggling towards a brighter future. It's one of the most touching narratives I've ever had the pleasure of reading, and I can't recommend this story to anyone out there enough. Berserk's sophomore outing in the Golden Age arc receives the highest praise I think I can give a story. I'm excited to read it again and again and again. If you haven't yet read it, consider yourself one of the lucky ones, because you have ahead of yourself the possibility of enjoying something that I think comes around only once in a lifetime. So if you can, go grab yourself the work of potentially the greatest mangaka to have ever lived, Kentaro Miura, and let's struggle through this incredible tale of loss, love, despair, and happiness together. As always, I've been Totally Not Mark. Thank you so much for watching.
See, I am partway through the Lost Children arc, so I reckon in the next couple of days I'll be checking out the review for that. But yeah, man, Golden Age is just like, whoa, it's hard, it's really difficult. They spend a long time building up so much relationships, and you get so emotionally attached to these characters, and then it's just, bam, forget it. It's like, oh man. But yeah, definitely carrying on. I do feel like Berserk's the best manga I've ever read. Like, I love One Piece to bits, don't get me wrong, but I do really feel like the way that Berserk's story is presented is absolutely phenomenal. And yeah, don't skip the Black Swordsman's arc. I think it really helps set up, like, you show how broken Guts is from the get-go, and then it's like, well, why? And then it's like, let's show you. It's like, oh. Anyway, thank you to my patrons. If you want to have your name at the end of every video, link is in the description of the Patreon page. $1 a month is all that helps support the channel. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you guys for that. And thank you all for watching. What do you guys think of that? What do you guys think of this? Click like, subscribe if you haven't already. Leave comments down below. Let me know that I should watch this in future videos. I'll see you guys, all you guys, next time.